It is said by every Democrat working for or around her campaign every day on this network and every other one. The bloodbath thing is stated every single day.
Okay.
Kamala Harris says that Donald Trump and the sort of several assassination attempts of recent weeks might give him a better understanding of the struggles of the LGBTQ plus community who feel threatened by Project 2025. Let's see if this makes sense or if it's just a piece of rhetorical oddness.
Do you have full confidence in the Secret Service to protect all of you?
I do.
You feel safe for you and your family?
I do. But, I mean, you can go back to Ohio. Not everybody has Secret Service. And there are far too many people in our country right now who are not feeling safe. I mean, I look at Project 2025 and I look at, like the Don't Say Gay laws coming out of Florida. Members of the LGBTQ community don't feel safe right now. Immigrants or people with an immigrant background don't feel safe right now. Women don't feel safe right now. And so, yes, I feel safe. I have Secret Service protection. But that doesn't change my perspective on the importance of fighting for the safety of everybody in our country.
Yeah, we've got to fight for the old safety. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, do you feel safe? One of the reasons I don't feel safe is because I know that we are heavily surveilled and that Kamala Harris is a representative of those kind of powers. I know that we're heavily censored, and Kamala Harris is a representative of those kind of powers. I know that we are being guided by people that are not qualified towards increasing conflict with nuclear superpowers like Russia and China and Iran. And Kamala Harris is a representative of those powers. It's such a pity, isn't it? It's such a shame that we have generated systems that are occupied by such folk. Well, thankfully we have the almighty power of prayer to somewhat protect us. And I suppose we have the ability to communicate directly in the manner that we are now. One thing I can tell you with a degree of certainty is that when it comes to legacy media like CNN, they revel in misinformation while claiming to protect you from it. Here, Scott Jennings acknowledges the fact that the Trump bloodbath lyric is a deliberately misleading mainstream media meme. Have a look at this. You'll enjoy this, I think, guys.
I just don't agree. I mean, the underpinning of her campaign, I mean, she repeats it herself. Trump will be a dictator on day one. I mean, this country fights dictators. That's what our history is. We fight dictators.
Didn't he say that?
He'll be a dictator on day one.
His words.
There'll be a bloodbath. There'll be a bloodbath.
She say that there would be a bloodbath?
He wants to terminate the U.S. Constitution.
She didn't say that there would be a bloodbath.
The first thing she said, which was true, and the second thing
It is said by every Democrat working for or around her campaign every day on this network and every other one. The bloodbath thing is stated every single day.
Okay, let me
But my point is, dictator, bloodbath, eliminate Constitution.
Hold on.
What do you think that does
to clear this up. You're referring to Trump's use of the word bloodbath when he was talking.
And what was he talking about?
I'm going to explain it to people because I think there's confusion about this. Use of the word bloodbath when he was talking about, vehicle manufacturing jobs in the United States. Vice President Harris improperly and unfairly mischaracterized that as him saying there would be a bloodbath if he were elected. However, she did not say that if Trump were elected, there would be a bloodbath. She did not say that.
That's actually quite enjoyable, isn't it? To see someone have to backtrack and acknowledge that. Because I watched that rally. I watched it. At the time when that news story came out, he said there'd be a bloodbath. He was talking about tariffs and manufacturing China and whether or not China would do manufacturing deals with Mexico and stuff. It's just rhetoric. On one hand, there are people being imprisoned for stuff they're posting online. And on the other hand, there are people being sort of condemned as if their rhetoric was literal. Very interesting. Rock Monster Word of Mouth, Russell Brand. To find the seven heads, we have to deal with Lucifer Snake, his heads of evil, the blanket over the world. Rock Monster of Mouth. Look, I do now believe that there is a cultist component. If not a cultist, maybe that sounds too sort of grand. There is a serious darkness at play, not just the wonkish and bureaucratic stuff. Beneath the kind of language there is a dark power. I'm still trying to understand it. It's early days for me. Bear with me. So let's have a look at elsewhere. Kamala Harris is having to, or at least CNN are acknowledging that when it comes to policies, Kamala Harris is a little left wanting. Let's have a look at that.
When you listen to Kamala Harris and what she will do, you can almost start a drinking game every time she says small businesses. Let me give you an example.
Part of my plan under my economic opportunity plan going forward is that right now, startup entrepreneurs, small businesses only get a tax deduction of $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. So I'm expanding that to $50,000. Understanding, again, that when people have the opportunity to have the resources to get started, they're going to put the good ideas, they're going to put the hard work into it.
Describe the politics of that.
When she says that, she also talks about being a middle-class kid. That's also at the front of her answers. If you look at the interviews they've been doing with local media, and they've opened up a bit more since the debate, the first question is often, what are you going to do to lower prices? Which is a very hard question for an incumbent party to answer. And it has implications that are very Trumpian. It is, Trump says he's going to do mass deportation. That'll decrease demand. Trump says he'll explore more energy. That'll decrease energy costs. Democrats can point to the fact that inflation is actually, it was bad 2 years ago. It's not now. What people want to hear is, how do you make the prices go down? So everything she says is something realistic that could survive a fact check that answers a very hard question. There is not a plan to say that we're going to lower the cost of your grocery bill to what it was in 2019. There was a pandemic. There was a money supply inflation. You can't hit the button that makes that go away. But Trump has an answer that gets him through these questions. And Harris, I think, with a different set of incentives and a different relationship to something she can back up in a policy paper, she doesn't have an answer. So she goes to a larger, well, imagine a future where there are more businesses and this starts to ameliorate.
We can't continue to bring you this beautiful content without the support of our partners. 1775 is not normally a date that I hold in high esteem, being a British gentleman and a natural drinker of tea and a natural opposition to your national sovereignty over there in America. As you know, deep down, we still regard you as a colony. Now, Rumble 1775 coffee is a great and different coffee. It's free from pesticides and chemicals and rich in flavor. The beans are sourced from a single high altitude farm in Bolivia. This Bolivian farm only makes coffee, nothing else. It's very, very, very good coffee. Join the coffee revolution today and brew rebellion with Rumble 1775 coffee, even if you are indeed British and hurt by everything that went on during that very dark year for Her Majesty the Queen. Go to 1775coffee.com/brand and use the code BRAND to get 15% off your order. Support Rumble and support freedom of speech. And remember, you should consider getting Rumble Premium so you can have a better experience of Rumble. I can smell this stuff. I'm actually addicted to coffee, so it's like quite an easy thing to get me to advertise. Let's have a policy freak off, because here is Kamala Harris saying, in response to, I don't know what the question was, I grew up a middle-class kid. In our country, it's Keir Starmer's dad was a toolmaker. There's nothing, when he was campaigning, he don't need his toolmaker dad so much now that he's got his hands on the levers of power. What he needs now is the ability to imprison people for stuff they say on the internet, and he has that ability, and by God, is he using it. The idea that politicians deploy rhetoric that makes them sound normal, affable, relatable, it's become a joke and a bit of a cliche. We know the baby kissing was started by Adolf Hitler. You know that there are numerous techniques, whether it is Joe Biden banging on about Stanton and corn pop, or the extraordinary backstory of Barack Obama. People have to elevate their humanity in order to, I suppose, somehow refresh us, remind us, or even distract us from the fact that they don't seem like ordinary people. They don't appear to behave or legislate like normal people. Like, just take an example from earlier on, like when Kamala Harris was talking about, people not feeling safe. In that moment, referring to the cultural conditions that are convenient for her to raise, that grow out of what she believes to be the bigotry of the right that leads to prejudicial conditions for people with minority identity preferences. She doesn't say, you might not feel safe though because we're escalating tensions with nuclear superpowers on almost every front. And it just seems like a weird way to think and a weird way to communicate. I just want to show you this moment that allows us to further understand the rather trivial responses to inquiries about policy. Have a look. It's from Kamala Harris, of course.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers, and I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, you know, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity. And that we as Americans have a beautiful character. You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions.
Do you know why they do that? Because they say that voters are stupid and can only understand small little sound bites. That's what they say. That's what they say. Oh, they won't understand it. But one of the sort of incredible advantages of the online space is, and one of the paradoxes, I suppose, is whilst we're all hypnotized and spellbound by TikTok and easily dragged off into avenues of idiocy on Instagram or scrolling on X for much too long and looking at stuff that's just clearly not good for you, we also do have the ability to consume incredible long-form content where there are excellent arguments available, just people you just would never hear elsewhere. Even academics that are non-sanctioned, someone like sort of Graham Hancock, who, like, you know, archaeologists just detest and despise, or Randall Carlson, who has like amazing theories, or figures like Mearsheimer and Sachs when it comes to geopolitics, who people might condemn, but these are like legit academics who can provide a counter narrative to what you'll hear elsewhere. So now, when you hear Kamala Harris say, "I grew up a middle-class kid for the umpteenth time," doesn't it feel sort of facile and empty? And sort of, in a way, a politics that belongs to a different time, a rhetoric that is defunct and dying. Well, that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat. An interesting take on Kamala Harris there in a number of areas. One, lack of policies when it comes to grocery prices. Two, specific prices, you know, she can't help banging on about being a middle-class kid. And finally, her response to the inquiry about Project 25 and that's LGBTQ stuff and talking about safety. All of those things together give you a very interesting insight into the mind of Kamala Harris, I would say. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.